everyone. Thank you for coming this morning to the Devry Smith-Frank Occupational Health and Safety Seminar. A few things that I'd like to just cover off is, if you plan on talking about the maple leafs this morning, I would advise not to. We're actually going to consider that as a common hazard this morning, and it's just best that you don't talk about them, period. So, with that, the reason why we have prompted this seminar is changes under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, namely a new regulation that will come into force on July 1st, 2014, that every employer in Ontario will be required to ensure that their employees have basic occupational health and safety awareness training. So with that, we have a special guest speaker, Sandra Excellent, from the Public Sector Health and Safety Association, who's going to cover off what those basic requirements are and what your workplace is going to need to do to come into compliance, and a little bit about their services for public sector employers. We're going to cover off some of the compliance issues that you might come up with when you're dealing with this new regulation. And then we're going to take a little bit of a break and then go into some case law updates, because we've had a lot of activity in the occupational health and safety area and cases that have gone up to the Ontario Court of Appeal. And it's provided some interesting interpretations for workplaces and things that employers are wrestling with. And then we're going to end with my colleague, Michael Farace, who's going to do a much needed reminder to us on how to deal with a workplace accident and our requirements, because you can bet with this new regulation, you'll see the Ministry of Labour probably try to do a blitz. And if you do have an accident, they're going to be looking at your training records. So Michael's going to cover off making sure that you're in compliance when you're dealing with a workplace accident. So with that, a few safety things that I wanted to talk about. We've provided you with these pens on your table. Hopefully everyone has one. If not, Z Marketing, they also have one. If you're looking how to work it, you twist to get to the pen itself. At the other end is hand sanitizer. So it sort of sprays. It's got actually a fairly good alcohol content if you, if you sniff it. So with that, I don't recommend pointing it towards your eyes or to anyone else's eyes as a safety precaution. I'm just providing you with the training here so you can say that you got it. No drinking it. It is refillable, and so, you know, if you desire to put some tequila or vodka in that afterwards to get you through your day, you know, the only thing I ask if you're going to do that is if you could write your phone number on your arm so that we know who to call to return you to. So with that, you have now all got your training on these, the use of these pens and any common hazard. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our special guest speaker, Sandra Excellent, from the Public Sector Health and Safety Association. She is a consultant that specializes in addressing employers and their workplace hazards and providing them with the means to sort of grapple with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So welcome, Sandra.
I'm definitely holding on to my pen. Keep that, bring it to work. We should definitely have some of those and fill it up with some fun stuff after. So thank you very much for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here, and as was mentioned, my name is Sandra Excellent and I work for PSHSA, Public Services Health and Safety Association, and I'll be talking about the mandatory awareness training sessions. Just a bit of information about my organization. We are a nonprofit organization partially funded through the Ministry of Labour, and I heard a bit of chatter about some of the other health and safety associations. So about maybe 3-4 years ago, we went through an amalgamation. There were 12 health and safety associations, and it became 4. So PSHSA is one of them, and in the name it talks about the public services. So we mostly deal with healthcare, education, municipalities, some government service, and Aboriginal services as well. But we're always happy to answer anybody's questions, so you can always give us a call. We, not only my organization, but the other 3 health and safety organizations, do what we do because we want to drive down accidents or incidents, depending on how you want to call it. We want to drive down fatalities as well. Some of the experts that we do have on staff, my background is in ergonomics. We have industrial hygienists, infection control specialists, as it mentions here, special education, emergency services, so firefighters, retired police officers that do training for them as well, so on and so forth. So many different experts helping out answering your questions. So what I do find alarming and definitely not acceptable is the statistics that I'm showing you right now. It's a bit dated, 2011, but sometimes we can't get up-to-date stats from the WSIB. Almost 180,000 workers in Ontario were injured in 2011, and that is lost time and non-lost time injuries. About 500 people per day are getting injured. So that's one of the reasons why the Ministry of Labour wanted these awareness sessions, wanted you guys to deliver these awareness sessions to your staff and supervisors. Another really good reason is the 2009, I call it the Christmas Eve incident or accident that happened, where there were 5 people working in high-rise cleaning the windows, and unfortunately something went wrong, and 4 out of the 5 died. The Ministry of Labour did their investigation, as they always do when there's a fatality or critical injury, and decided that they should have an advisory panel look into the occupational health and safety in Ontario. And what they noticed, they didn't really like what they discovered, that many workers didn't really know about occupational health and safety, not even general information about how to keep themselves safe. So 2 of the recommendations that came about of that panel was that we need to have we need to have sessions for workers as well as supervisors on general health and safety information. I also wanted to let you know that the Ministry of Labour, really it's the Prevention Services, the Chief Prevention Officer, the CPO, decided to create Ontario's first integrated health and safety strategy. Again, to see what can we do to help organizations in in Ontario stay safe. Some of the strategies include new resources to support small businesses, as it's written here. All workers, especially those most at risk, receive the help they need. Effective and efficient delivery of health and safety services. So HSAs, the Health and Safety Associations, need to figure out how to deliver better sessions and better information. Raise awareness among Ontarians about ways to stay safe, and compliance of course, the regulations and the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So he did listen to many different organizations in Ontario, listen to the unions, listen to many different people, about, I think it was 1,150 consultation participants, and received about 217 responses to the consultation paper that was released in March of 2013. This is the framework that they put together, and it's just to show that they are definitely looking to help small businesses, organizations that have high hazards, and organizations that have vulnerable workers. So everybody is working very hard to target those key organizations. Now to the fun stuff. It was mentioned already, mandatory awareness session effective July 1st, 2014. Important to realize that it is all organizations in Ontario that follow the Occupational Health and Safety Act. So everybody needs to get this done by that date. Also wanted to mention a couple of things. After July 1st, if you're hiring somebody new, I would definitely make sure that they've completed the awareness session. If they haven't, they can ask their previous employer if they haven't, of course you need to train them. But if they have, they can go back to their previous employer and ask for the proof so that they can present it to their new employer. The legislation, which is Regulation 297/2013, actually states that they have a 6-month window where they can ask their previous employer for the proof. Another thing is that if you do hire that new person and they either don't have the proof or haven't gone through the training, you have to train them within a reasonable time period. Unfortunately, it doesn't specify what that reasonable time period is. It's for you to decide, but I would do it as quickly as possible. If you're hiring a new supervisor and again, they don't have the training or they don't have the proof that they've completed the training, you have about a week to give them that training. It says a week within starting their supervisory roles. Very important as an organization to keep records of everyone who has completed the training, because of course if the Ministry of Labor is coming, knocking on your door and they're looking for proof, they want to see that 100% of your supervisors and 100% of your workers have actually completed this mandatory training. Now you're wondering, Sandra's talking a lot about this and that, but she hasn't mentioned what's in the training. We're about to do that. So some of the information that workers need to know, or have to know, is the duties and rights of workers under the Act, the duties of the employer and supervisors, the role of the health and safety rep, if you have a health and safety rep, or if you have more than 19 people in your organization, the role of the Joint Health and Safety Committee, the role of the Ministry of Labor, WSIB, and designated entities such as the Health and Safety Associations, because that's where they'll be getting some of their information. They need to know about some of the workplace hazards that you have in your, well, of course, in your organization, since it's workplace hazard. And of course, WMIS is very important. It's actually listed in the regulation as a topic that you need to cover, as well as occupational illness, including the definition of latency. They want to make sure that your workers know that if they do get exposed to something, they might not get sick right away. So if we think about chemicals, or actually good examples, we think about asbestos. If they get exposed to asbestos, well, asbestosis, all the symptoms come about 20, 30 years later. So these are the things that you definitely need to have covered. I should have mentioned previously that there are different ways that you can do the training. These are two of the booklets that Ministry of Labor has. You can go on the website, do the e-learning version, which is great. There's one for supervisors and one for workers. And it takes about 45 minutes to an hour. That's what it says on the website. When I talk to some of my clients some of them mention that they're, I'm trying to find a nice way of saying this, they're workers who have English as a second or third language, it actually took them a lot longer than the 45 minutes to an hour. Somebody told me that it took many of her staff members about an hour and a half. I just find that some of the information, especially if you're printing out the booklet instead of doing e-learning, it's a lot of words, a lot of text. So it will take them a bit longer to do. So just remember that when you're having them complete these sessions. So again, Ministry of Labor website, you can do the e-learning version, available for free. Once you start it, you cannot pause, you cannot stop, you have to complete it. Another way is printing out the booklets that they have, PDF files, and giving that to your staff. Or you can order those cute little booklets, very nice cute little booklets from the Ministry of Labor for free. Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Labor's training for the workers is called 4 steps because it has 4 steps. The first one is called Getting on Board. And getting on board just means that they have to know about the Internal Responsibility System, so the IRS. They need to know how they fit into that model. They need to understand the roles, responsibilities of the employer, the roles, responsibilities, and the duties of the supervisor, and their own roles and responsibilities. Step 2, 3, and 4 just talk about the 3 worker rights. The right to know, the right to participate, and the right to refuse unsafe work. So in step 2, the right to know. They need to understand that they can get information on health and safety. Understand the right to know about workplace hazards. How are they going to find that information? Really, they can go to their supervisors, they can go to the health and safety associations, they can go to their policies and procedures, the programs you have. So those types of information you need to present to them. Step 3, get involved, the right to participate. They have a right to participate in health and safety. Some of the ways they might do that is being on the Joint Health and Safety Committee, or being a health and safety rep, or let's see, being champions if you have champions in your organization for some health and safety matters. Asking questions about health and safety, that's another way that they can participate in health and safety. If you have health and safety week, so on and so forth. So many different ways they can participate. Step 4, which is they have a right to refuse unsafe work. Very important for them to know that right. For those of you who are in the healthcare sector, it's important to remind them that they have a limited right to refuse unsafe work, or if we have such things as firefighters here or police officers here, limited right to refuse unsafe work. And just going to section 43, subsection 1 and 2 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and actually reading that to them if you decide to do presentations. Very important because it explains who has a limited right and why. When we look at the supervisor awareness objections, it's pretty similar to that of the workers. It's listed here, duties, rights of workers under the Act, duties of the employer and supervisor, the role of health and safety rep, Joint Health and Safety Committee, knowing who the Ministry of Labor, WSIB, if you are covered under WSIB, and other designated entities. What's a bit different is the last couple of steps, how to Race to Safety, a lovely acronym to remind you to recognize the hazards in your workplace, assess the hazards, control them, and going back to evaluate the controls you have in place to ensure that you haven't created a new hazard, and ensuring that that control is actually doing what it's supposed to do, which is preventing injuries. And source of information on occupational health and safety as well, where to get that information. With these supervisors, the Ministry of Labor separated the learning in 5 steps. The first step is called making a difference. It's understanding supervisors' role in the internal responsibility system. Again, reminding them how important the IRS is and working together to solve the health and safety issues or any issues in the organization. Step 2, lead the way. Understand the core rights of the workers and how supervisors can support those rights. Very important for them to know that the workers have the 3 rights: to participate, to know, and to refuse unsafe work. And how to, if somebody comes to ask them questions, how to answer those questions, especially when it comes to unsafe work. Step 3, use the supervisor toolkit, and it's going a bit beyond their roles and responsibilities and their duties. So if you looked at the Act, Section 27 for supervisors, it sort of explains what's in between the lines. Section 27 will tell you that you need to protect workers under reasonable circumstances. You need to ensure that workers know about hazards in the workplace. You need to ensure that, I don't want to repeat myself, so that they know about hazards, that they wear their personal protective equipment. So step 3 sort of tells you how you can do that. They remind supervisor to incorporate race, recognize, assess, control, and evaluate into planning and organizing their work. Reminds them to look for hazards and take action. So how can we do that? Perhaps it's doing a run-through, doing a walk-through your organization once a day or several times a day and looking for hazards that are there. Perhaps doing inspections on a monthly basis in your own area to determine if there are hazards there, and again, do something about it. Steps to make sure workers follow the workplace rules. Now, how are we going to ensure that they're actually doing what they're supposed to do, and how will we enforce it? Know what to do if something goes wrong. Very, very important. And understand the effect of not fulfilling the supervisor's role and legal health and safety obligations, which to me just translates into due diligence. How will you be able to protect yourself if something were to go wrong? So very, very important, step 3 when it comes for supervisors. We want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to protect yourself. Step 4 looks at know that you're not alone. Because after you tell supervisors about due diligence and that they need to protect themselves and that they need to start doing inspections and things like that, they need to know that they're not alone. There are internal and external people that they can go to get some help. And of course, there's the WSIB, Ministry of Labor, Health and Safety Associations, as well as the Joint Health and Safety Committee or your health and safety rep. getting trained on employer to ensure that you are a competent supervisor. So this awareness training does not make a supervisor competent. It's basic general health and safety information. So it's important for them to know that it doesn't make them competent, and they need to get more training to get to that competency level. And as we know in the Occupational Health and Safety Act, it states that a supervisor needs to be competent. And again, unfortunately, that's written between the lines under Section 25, where an employer needs to hire a supervisor who is competent, and under the competent person definition, it states that you need to know about the Occupational Health and Safety Act, you need to know about hazards in your location, and you need to know about, you need to know how to do your job. So step 5 looks at something that I find very, very important. It's be a role model. How else will you be able to change someone's behavior if you do not emulate it? So describe why a supervisor needs to set a good example in the workplace with regards to health and safety and how to influence others. Just a slide to remind you that it is important to become a competent person if the person is a supervisor, and exactly what I said before, qualified to organize the work so you know how to do your job, you're familiar with the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the legislation, and you're knowledgeable about the workplace hazards. Becoming a competent supervisor is a continuing learning journey. It really never ends. There's always something more to learn. Develop a comprehensive understanding of law to plan and organize work safely, because again, you want to be able to prove your due diligence and to keep workers safe. Learn how to manage hazards, conduct inspections and investigation, and through competency training, you do learn those things. Learn about specific hazards in your workplace, gain leadership skills, coaching, mentoring, and performance management. So what's very important, I brought my notes and I'm not using them. So what's very, very important is you might already have something in your organization that looks like what I'm telling you. What you can do is just go back, look at your orientation training. Do you cover off all these items that I've listed? If so, great. Ministry of Labor is supposed to come out with a checklist so you can compare. About 45 questions for both the worker and for the supervisor training. You could just check off. Would probably be I'm telling you about the IRS, I'm telling them about who the WSIB is, what the Ministry of Labor does, things like that. Sorry, I'm just going to bring this all up. Perfect. And if you, as I mentioned before, if you feel that your training does cover all of these, you don't have to train the workers again, and you don't have to train the supervisors again. You just need to be able to prove that what you have meets the minimum standards. And again, that all staff have gone through this training. Ministry of Labor is providing tools, hopefully sometime soon, to help organize, demonstrate compliance, the assessment questions, which I already mentioned, training matrix for tracking, but it really is for small to medium-sized businesses, would be an Excel sheet of some sort. Really wouldn't work if you had a big organization, it would just make it a bit too complicated. And questions for staff to demonstrate that they are aware of health and safety, but again, those are not mandatory. So I hate showing the slide because people think, oh no, now I have to prove that people understood the session that I delivered or that they understand the e-learning or the text that they read. No, it doesn't. It's just a step further. Although I wouldn't be surprised that later on they tell you that they want you to prove that they do understand the training. I mentioned that there are a couple of different ways to do the training. Free training on the Ministry of Labor website, I mentioned already. There is the e-learning that they have. Just remember that if you stop or pause, it will just keep on going. Or there have been, some of my clients told me that they paused it, they went away, they came back, and it goes all the way at the beginning again. For that tool, just remind workers and supervisors that when they ask you for your name, enter your real name. Because at the end, it will print a certificate that they must give to HR or their supervisors. And I've seen too many times Mickey Mouse, Daffy Duck, and we do not need that because guess what? They wasted an hour of their time and they have to redo it to get the proper certificate. The other way is, as I said before, if you don't have access, or they don't have access to computers, or you don't want them to do it on the computer, they can print the document, the PDF file, and just do the written booklet, answer the quiz, and at the end, I think there is a certificate that you would just sign. A third method is asking Ministry of Labor for those cute little books. I don't know why I like cute little books. And cute pens. So definitely important, one of those three ways. Our organization does offer training, e-learning, as well as in-class services. We decided to do that because some of our clients told us that they'd rather have in-class sessions. That way, if people have questions, they can get answered. They just felt that sometimes when people do e-learning or do it on their own, they might have questions, but they'll never come and ask. So we do offer the training, either e-learning or in-class, prefer in-class, at a low fee. And the fee is only so that we can keep track of who's taking the course. So it'll stay on our LMS service, whatever LMS stands for. Unfortunately, I can't remember. Learning something system, I guess. So then there's also the option, and I feel for larger organizations it would work better. They can purchase our e-learning tool and put it on their LMS and keep track of their own people who have gone through the training. And the in-class service, I think it's about $150 for workers, $300 for supervisors, but you can fill up the room. If you want some of our information, our website's up there, www.pshsa.ca. My name is Sandra Excellent. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and to find your consultants, for some of you who are in the public sector, you can go on our website and enter your postal code, and automatically, I think a picture, hopefully not a picture, but contact information will pop up to let us know who your consultant is. But again, if you do have questions and concerns, we never really turn anybody away because it really wouldn't be fair if somebody were to call us and really needed help and we'd be like, sorry, we don't help you. So I'm not sure if anybody has questions or if I'm allowed to take questions.